There comes a moment when silence is no longer strength, when swallowing disrespect becomes poison. You've been calm, you've been kind, you've been civil, but some people mistake your grace for weakness. Let me be very clear, you are not here to be walked on. And if someone dares to disrespect you, you do not shrink. You do not tremble. You rise. This is what you say, and this is how you take your power back. When someone is rude to you, the immediate reaction is often emotional anger, hurt, confusion. But here's the truth most people miss. Rudeness is never really about you. It's a mirror of their inner chaos, a projection of unresolved wounds and such frustration they haven't dared to face. And when that ugliness is directed at you, the natural instinct is to fight back, to prove yourself, to defend your worth. But you don't have to dance in their storm. You stand in your stillness. When someone tries to pull you into their mess, the first thing you must recognize is that it is their mess, not yours. This is where your power begins, with awareness. When you say your words say more about you than they ever will about me, strip them of control. That sentence isn't a comeback, it's a statement of. When someone is rude to you, the immediate reaction is often emotional anger, hurt, confusion. But here's the truth most people miss. Rudeness is never really about you. It's a mirror of their inner chaos, a projection of unresolved wounds, insecurity they haven't dared to face. And when the ugliness is directed at you, the natural instinct is to fight back, to prove yourself, to defend your worth. But you don't have to dance in their storm. You stand in your stillness. When someone tries to pull you into their mess, the first thing you must recognize is that it is their mess, not yours. This is where your power begins, with awareness. When you say your words say more about you than they ever will about me, you strip them of control. That sentence isn't a comeback, it's a statement of their narrative without ever raising your voice. And that disruption, that's the part they remember. It's important to understand that responding like this doesn't make you weak or passive. In fact, it's the opposite. It takes immense strength to choose peace when chaos is offered. It takes power to speak truth when ego tempts you to lash out. But what you're really doing is rising above the noise. Because not all battles are worth fighting, and not all disrespect deserves a front row seat in your mind. By owning your response, you remind them and yourself that your dignity is not up for negotiation. You don't owe anyone the energy of an emotional brawl. What you owe yourself is the freedom to walk away, with your self-respect intact. So the next time someone tries to belittle you, question your worth, or insult you with a smirk on their face, remember this: the most powerful response is one that reveals the truth without feeding their fire. Look them in the eye and say it with calm, unwavering certainty. Your words say more about you than they ever will about me. Then let that silence speak louder than any argument ever could. This kind of response is not just for them, it's for you. It affirms your strength, it protects your peace, and it reminds you of who you are. You're not here to be defined by someone else's inability to be kind. You're not a sponge for their misery. You're a force measured, intentional, and unshaken. And every time you choose not to let their rudeness infect your spirit, you reclaim something sacred: your control. Respect is not a request. It's a standard. It's the silent contract we all sign when we enter a conversation, a relationship, or any human interaction. But what happens when someone breaks that contract, when their tone cuts like a knife, their words drip with contempt, and their attitude screams superiority? That's when you draw the line. And you do it not with aggression, but with conviction. You say respect is a two-way street and this is a dead end. That sentence isn't just powerful, it's non-negotiable. It tells them that the exchange is over unless it's mutual. You're not begging for kindness. You're demanding alignment. We live in a world where people often confuse being loud with being right. They think dominance earns them control. But here's the truth you teach people how to treat you. Every time you allow disrespect to slide, every time you minimize your worth to keep the peace, you tell them it's okay to cross that line again. And again. And again. But when you calmly speak your boundary, when you clearly state, this stops here, you shift the dynamic. You reclaim your voice, not with rage, but with rooted self-worth. You don't need to prove that you deserve respect. Your existence already proves it. And if someone can't meet you at that level, they don't belong in your energy. You're not rude for setting standards. You're not overreacting for expecting decency. You're simply honoring the space you've worked so hard to protect. When you say, if you can't bring respect to this conversation, don't bring yourself at all, you make one thing clear: presence is a privilege. And not everyone has earned it. Some people only understand boundaries when they feel the consequence of crossing them. Your boundary might be the first time they're forced to look in the mirror. This isn't about shutting people out of your life for being flawed. We're all flawed. This is about recognizing patterns when someone repeatedly disregards your feelings, dismisses your voice, and gaslights your experience. That's not a bad day. That's a behavior. Behaviors don't change with excuses. They change when they're confronted with truth. Speaking up isn't confrontation, it's self-preservation. And there's nothing noble about tolerating disrespect just to keep things smooth on the surface while you're breaking underneath. You don't owe anyone continued access to you when they refuse to bring respect to the table. You are not obligated to explain, justify, or plead for basic decency. It's not your job to coach someone into being kind. You are not their lesson. You are not their emotional punching bag. You are a whole, complex, valuable human being who deserves to feel seen, heard, and valued. And when someone can't give you that, you don't shrink, you stand. You say, this environment doesn't serve my self-worth, so I won't stay in it. That is how you rise, by refusing to lower your standards for someone else's comfort. And sometimes the hardest part isn't saying it, it's believing you deserve to. But you do. You deserve to be surrounded by people who speak to you with care, who challenge you without crushing you, who listen when you speak, not just hear you, but listen. Anything less than that isn't just disappointing, it's draining. And you weren't put on this earth to be drained. You were built to grow, to thrive, to evolve in spaces where your soul feels safe. And the moment someone tries to take that from you with sharp words or careless disregard, that's when you say it calmly, clearly, boldly. Respect is a two-way street, and this one doesn't go any further. There's a shift that happens the moment you realize not everyone deserves access to you. It's one of the most empowering realizations of your life. Because for too long you may have given people your time, your presence, your energy, thinking loyalty meant endurance even when it hurt. You gave chances, you explained yourself, you stayed longer than you should have, hoping they'd see your worth. But some people aren't blind, they just don't care. And when someone repeatedly disrespects you, the message is loud and clear. They don't value their access to you. That's when you take it back. That's when you say, you don't have that kind of access to me anymore. Setting that boundary doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. It's not about holding grudges, it's about protecting your peace. Think about how much of your emotional bandwidth gets drained by people who bring nothing but stress, manipulation, or negativity. Every moment you spend explaining to someone why they should treat you better is a moment stolen from your own growth. The truth is, you don't need to constantly justify your standards. You just need to enforce them. And that enforcement starts when you limit who gets the privilege of proximity to your life. People will call you selfish when you begin to choose yourself. They'll say you've changed. And they're right, you have. Because you've stopped living for validation. You've stopped bending over backwards to be understood by people who never really tried to understand you. When you say, I protect my peace, and that means limiting who gets to disturb it, you're not being dramatic. You're being strategic. You're choosing sanity over chaos, clarity over confusion, and growth over guilt. And anyone who respects you will understand that. The ones who don't, they were never really there for you, they were there for your access. Taking back access doesn't require conflict. It doesn't need an announcement or a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it's as simple as silence. A phone call answered. A text left unread. A conversation you no longer feel obligated to continue. Distance is not always physical, it's energetic. You start to withdraw your availability from those who have abused it. And instead of guilt, you begin to feel something different: freedom. The freedom to move through life without tiptoeing around disrespect. The freedom to reclaim your emotional real estate. That's what boundaries create: space to breathe. The people who truly care about you will notice the shift and step up. They'll respect the lines you draw, but those who are only interested in what you could give them will start to fall away. And as painful as that is, it's also clarifying. You start to see who was in your life because they cherished you and who was just using the convenience of your kindness. And here's the truth. It's not your job to carry everyone. Some people are lessons in disguise. And once that lesson is learned, you owe it to yourself to move forward lighter, wiser, and more self-aware. So when someone crosses the line with their words, their actions, or their energy, don't explain yourself. Don't argue. Just remind yourself not everyone gets to sit at your table. Access to your time, your heart, your presence, that's not something you just give away. It's something people earn. And when they show you through their disrespect that they've lost that privilege, you don't make a scene. You simply respond with strength, certainty, and truth. You don't have that kind of access to me anymore. There's a moment when you stop letting people talk to you any way they want. It happens quietly after enough experiences, after enough silence, after enough pretending their tone didn't sting or their words didn't wound. You wake up one day and decide, I'm not available for disrespect anymore. That's not attitude, that's self-respect. And when someone comes at you sideways, rude, dismissive, sarcastic, trying to rattle your confidence, you don't flinch. You straighten your back, hold your ground, and say it with power. Let me remind you who you're talking to. It's not about ego. It's about identity. You know who you are, and you won't let anyone shrink that. People often try to diminish what they don't understand. They'll label your confidence as arrogance, your boundaries as coldness, your strength as attitude. That's because your presence threatens their comfort. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You didn't come this far to play small just to soothe someone. There's a moment when you stop letting people talk to you any way they want. It happens quietly after enough experiences, after enough silence, after enough pretending their tone didn't sting or their words didn't wound. You wake up one day and decide, I'm not available for disrespect anymore. That's not attitude, that's self-respect. And when someone comes at you sideways, rude, dismissive, sarcastic, trying to rattle your confidence, you don't flinch. You straighten your back, hold your ground, and say it with power. Let me remind you who you're talking to. It's not about ego. It's about identity. You know who you are, and you won't let anyone shrink that. People often try to diminish what they don't understand. They'll label your confidence as arrogance, your boundaries as coldness, your strength as attitude. That's because your presence threatens their comfort. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You didn't come this far to play small just to soothe someone else's fragile ego. You've been through too much, grown through too much to let someone's careless words define your worth. When you say you've clearly forgotten who you're dealing with, it's not about being confrontational. It's a reminder, a return to truth. You're not who you were. You've evolved, and they need to address the current version of you, not the past they think they can still manipulate. The power in that sentence comes from everything behind it, every heartbreak you rebuilt from, every failure you turned into fuel, every moment you kept going when life tried to break you. People see the surface, you standing tall, composed, powerful, but they don't see the battles behind the confidence. They don't see the nights you doubted yourself, the days you felt invisible, the times you gave more than you had. So when someone steps to you with disrespect, what they're really challenging is everything you fought for. And you're not letting that go without being heard. You don't need to get loud to make a point. There's a calm kind of strength that's more intimidating than shouting. When you speak with certainty, people feel it. Your tone, your body language, your presence, it all says, I won't tolerate this. And when you say, let me refresh your memory, it sends a message, I've done the work. I've earned my peace. I won't let anyone take me back to a place I've outgrown. Disrespect can't reach someone who knows their worth. And in that moment, they realize you're not the one to test. Sometimes people talk to you based on the version of you that tolerated nonsense. The version that stayed quiet to keep the peace, that accepted crumbs and called it connection. But that version doesn't live here anymore. Growth isn't just about becoming better, it's about becoming clear about what you'll no longer accept. When you carry yourself with that kind of clarity, people adjust. They either rise to meet your standard, or they fade away. Either way, you win. Because the moment you let someone know who they're dealing with, they have a choice: respect you or remove themselves. That's the beauty of self-awareness. It changes how you show up, and in turn, how people show up around you. When you honor yourself, it sets a new tone for every relationship. You stop asking, did I overreact? And start asking, did they overstep? And that one shift changes everything. So when someone crosses the line, when they forget your value, your strength, your street, don't argue. Don't shrink. Look them straight in the eye and say it with unwavering truth. Let me remind you who you're talking to. And watch how quickly they remember. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. People mistake it for weakness, for having nothing to say, for backing down. But real silence, the kind that comes from deep awareness, not fear, is commanding. It's not passive, it's intentional. It says, I hear you, I see you, but I don't need to engage with this. Because not every insult deserves a response. Not every dig deserves a reaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to provoke you is to stay completely still and say nothing at all. Your silence isn't surrender, it's dominance without destruction. Rude people often feed off of chaos. They push buttons, raise voices, and throw jabs hoping you'll bite, because when you do, they feel in control. But when you don't flinch, when you keep your energy steady and your eyes focused, it unsettles them. They expect rage. They expect you to justify, to explain, to plead for your dignity. But when you don't give them that satisfaction, the entire power dynamic shifts. You send a different kind of message: you are not important enough to disturb my peace. That's not arrogance. That's emotional intelligence. It's the art of choosing your battles and knowing some are beneath you. The ability to hold your center in the face of disrespect takes more strength than snapping back ever will. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can throw words like weapons. But it takes real mastery to assess the moment and say, this isn't worth my breath. It's not that you couldn't destroy them with the truth, it's that you don't need to. Because silence speaks in volumes the loudest voice can't reach. It echoes in their mind long after the moment passes. It makes them question their impact. And sometimes that quiet reflection does more damage than any retort ever could. There's a dignity in silence that nothing else can match. When you don't respond to provocation, you rise above it. You make it clear that your self-respect is non-negotiable, that your time and words are not free for anyone to misuse. Some people don't deserve a seat at the table of your attention. When they throw disrespect your way and you meet it with calm detachment, you're saying, I've outgrown this level of conversation. You're not being dismissive, you're protecting your mental space. And protecting that space is how you build the life you actually want. But let's be clear, silence doesn't mean you're suppressing your truth. It means you're choosing when and how to speak it. You're reserving your energy for moments that matter, for people who matter. Because not every moment deserves your reaction. And not every person deserves your energy. When you remain silent, in the face of intentional rudeness, you're not running from the fight. You're stepping out of a game you never agreed to play. That's power. That's wisdom earned through experience. And the older you get, the more you realize that silence is often the best answer to nonsense. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm with insults, attitude, or arrogance, remember this: you don't have to respond to be powerful. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't owe anyone a reaction just because they demand it. Let them talk. Let them stew in their own noise. You stay composed, stay rooted, stay silent, and know that your refusal to respond is not a loss, it's a lesson. Not for you, but for them. Because nothing confuses a disrespectful person more than the sound of their own voice echoing back at them, unanswered. There's a line people cross when they try to humiliate you publicly. It's not just disrespect, it's a calculated move meant to strip you of your dignity in front of others. They want an audience, they want a reaction. But what they don't expect is a calm, cutting response that exposes their cruelty without lowering yourself to their level. When someone tries to embarrass you, you don't shrink, you don't explode, you redirect the spotlight. You look them dead in the eye, say, if disrespect is how you make yourself feel powerful, I feel sorry for you. That one sentence flips the entire narrative. You're not the victim, they are the spectacle. When you say those words, you're not just defending yourself, you're diagnosing them. You're holding up a mirror. Because people who humiliate others are often masking their own deep insecurities. They crave attention, dominance, or validation they've never truly earned. So they go for the low-hanging fruit: humiliation. When you call it out, not with rage, but with absolute clarity, you take the air out of their performance. You expose the weakness beneath their aggression. And in that moment, you remind everyone watching that you're not the one to mess with. It takes restraint and strength to deliver that kind of response. Your instinct might scream at you to say in Gussaut, to return fire, to say something equally hurtful. But you're better than that. You don't throw mud, you rise above it. And that rise becomes the most powerful retaliation. Because the goal isn't to hurt them back, it's to protect your integrity. And what protects you most is truth. When you say, I'm not the one who needs fixing here, you reclaim your power without letting them drag you into their emotional mess. That's not weakness, that's control. Public disrespect is strategic, it's designed to embarrass you and elevate them. But when you stay grounded and speak truth with composure, it shifts the energy. It puts the pressure back on them. Everyone witnessing it feels the shift. The room quiets. Eyes move. And suddenly the one trying to belittle you looks exposed, because the person who remains composed in chaos becomes the one everyone listens to. That's why humiliation tactics fail in the presence of confidence. Not loud, boastful confidence, but calm, unshakable, earned confidence. This is not about playing the victim or gaining sympathy. It's about drawing a boundary even in the heat of confrontation. You're telling the world I will not be used as someone's emotional trash can. You're signaling that you know your worth and that you're not afraid to claim it in real time. Your calm response isn't for them, it's for you. It's your way of reminding yourself that no one has the right to take your power from you without your permission. And when you respond with grace and precision, you're giving yourself proof of how far you've come. The greatest power lies in calling out disrespect without becoming disrespectful. It's easy to match rudeness with rudeness. But it takes wisdom to hit harder with truth than with insult. When you look someone in the eye and say, if you need to put someone down to feel tall, that says more about you than it ever will about me. You don't just end the moment you elevate it. You leave them and everyone around with something to think about. Because in a world full of noise, that kind of strength, that kind of clarity echoes. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't let it shake you, let it reveal you. Let it reveal the strength you've built, the standards you've set, and the power you now hold. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to prove yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your presence, your silence, your truth, that's your armor. That's your fire. Remember, every time you choose to rise above disrespect, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You're not here to beg for respect, you command it. And anyone who can't handle that isn't meant to stand beside you. You are not here to shrink, to dim, or to tolerate nonsense in the name of being nice. You are here to stand in your full power, unapologetically. And when someone crosses that line, don't just respond, remind them who you are. Because once you do, they'll never forget it again.